We are live with my accountability buddy from. I was telling Mom it's after this weekend. It's weight loss time. Actually, I'll keep this. It's Mom. We're about to go so hard on the weight loss journey. You and me. We're gonna go. How long? How long are we gonna go?
Well, I'm practically there already. So.
Well, I need to.
You know what? I ate that carrot cake tonight just to give you a fighting chance.
My mom
I was trying to
to
handicap you.
Guys, it was like this big of a.
No, it was not.
I watched Mommy. It was like it was 1 foot by 1 foot.
It's not.
Well, I still have a pint of Ben and Jerry's waiting for me, and then after tomorrow's Super Bowl,
more.
it's over.
No more.
My mom's just gonna be throwing fruit at me. That's the only thing that I can have.
I'm throwing food at you now.
Yeah, I've been. I will say my fruit intake has gone up exponentially in 2 days because the 2 pieces of fruit that you gave me is like 6 months worth. That's as much fruit as I usually eat. So
I told you.
It
fills you up.
Fills you up, but at the same time, if I don't eat fruit, I get constipated.
All right, enough. Too much info. Nobody needs to know this.
And I'm like, Ma. I'll be sitting. I'll say, Ma.
You get crankstipated.
Yeah.
Cranky and constipated at the same time.
Mom, I need a laxative.
Oh, come on.
Okay, let me just go through mine. Well, I don't even know where to start this week. Again, as always, the news. I'm starting to realize the more that we do this podcast and I start looking at more and more news, I start to realize how
depressing it is.
Not depressing, but also how many people just want to make a clickbait title and then have a super wrong opinion. And I mean, like, there's no evidence behind what they're saying. And then that makes the main page on the Google News. I got to find a better news source.
It's pretty sad when my brother tells me, you're really depressing me every time I call.
Uncle Ray said that?
Yes. Just recently. I guess I have to get a hobby or something. It's like, I try to catch him up on any news that he's missed. Like, you're really depressing me. What did I tell you?
Okay, I mean, to be honest.
It's a good day when we're shooting down spy balloons.
Yeah. So all of mine are kind of like tchotchke, like not main, super hard main stuff to talk about. Do you have any like main ones? Like we could talk China balloon. We could talk the Twitter documentaries. Like that's the.
Well, similar to that, I have the FBI whistleblower about the attack on the Catholic Church.
Okay, I mean.
Want to start with that?
Yeah,
one?
What is it? Yeah, sure.
Well, I sent you this one. As a side note, it has since been, I don't know if retracted is the word, but they've kind of backed away from this. So
You've only sent me 2 this week? God.
No, I sent 3.
Oh, okay.
The FBI doubles down on Christians and white supremacy in 2023.
Starting off with want to cut off the YouTube video.
Oh my gosh, it's pretty damning. So, I mean, we thought the FBI was bad. It just keeps getting worse. This is the Richmond Division in Virginia. They have a terminology, the RMVE. It's the racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists in the Catholic Church. And there's an interest in the RTC, the Radical Traditional Catholics.
Yeah.
You know who they define these people as possible terrorists?
Okay.
Those who celebrate the Latin Mass and individuals who reject the Second Vatican Council.
Well, the first question I'm going to have to ask is who's still doing a Latin Mass?
Oh, there's a lot of traditionalists.
Really? Where's that? Like, that can't be
around the country. No,
really?
Around the world. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of people who still only like the Latin Mass. And there are no conspiracies, but there are no coincidences. The Pope recently made a statement that you're no longer allowed to have Latin masses.
Okay.
Which many in the faith looked at that as a slap in the face of the conservative Catholics,
really?
the traditionalists, who still believe.
Does that bother
in
you?
Mass.
Are you against that? Like,
no, I think if people want to go to Latin Mass, it's fine. I think they should be allowed.
Is it any different from our Mass though? It
yes,
shouldn't be. What's
it
different?
Is.
It's still Catholic.
Well, it's all in Latin, first of all. And
thanks.
The altar's against the wall, and you see predominantly the back of the
Okay, so that's the one. Okay, so let's go back in history real fast.
Yeah.
The Second Ecumenical Council was somewhat recently, right? Within the last...
Second Vatican Council.
When was the Ecumenical?
1960s.
Oh, okay.
Was Second Vatican.
And then before that, that's when it was mostly all Latin, right?
Yeah, that was your traditional...
God, that's kind of crazy to think about that.
There were no divorces in the church. It was not allowed. There was no...
Unless you're Henry VIII. But...
Yeah, well, it wasn't allowed. That's why he broke away and started his own church. Which, by the way, that same church is now endorsing same-sex marriages. So that shows you how far they have come since the days of Henry VIII.
Yeah. Great guy, by the way.
Yeah, real women promoter. So he's, anyhow, that's who they're targeting, and they're using the SPLC, which is the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a racially motivated group to begin with. They are identifying anybody in the Latin who takes part in the Latin Mass and rejects Second Vatican Council. They see them all as anti-Semites. They are extreme conservatives with social ideals concerning women.
Right.
So they're labeling.
I mean, that would make sense, right? Because it's before 1960. So it's people who have mentalities from before the 1960s.
Well,
right?
It's inaccurate to put a blanket
sense,
statement on somebody who celebrates at the Latin Mass that they're extremists. Because think about it. Your grandmother, she had a Latin Mass her whole youth. Does that make her an extremist because she grew up with that?
Well, no,
that's
because
how
she's not in it anymore, right?
No, but I'm saying all it was a way that the Catholic Church performed their Mass.
Right.
A traditional way.
But can't you make the argument that if you're still practicing the Latin Mass and not going by the Catholic, like the Pope's saying of we're not doing that anymore, like not even the Pope, going against the it's not ecumenical council.
Well, the Second Vatican Council, to my understanding, they did not outlaw the Latin Mass. What they said was you can still go to the Latin Mass, but it doesn't count as your weekly requirement for church, right? Because you're supposed to go to church based on our doctrine, canon law. You're supposed to go to confession once a year. You're supposed to receive communion once a week, and you need to go to Mass once a week. And it has to be a certain Mass. So you could go to Mass Monday through Friday. They didn't count that as your quote-unquote requirement. You had to go by a certain time Saturday into a certain time on Sunday. That was considered what they called the high Mass, if you will. So that was traditionally, it didn't matter that you went to all those other days, you still had to get to that Mass Saturday night or Sunday. It used to be originally just Sundays. You never went on Saturday. Right. But then they bent the rules and they created an evening Mass on Saturday to constitute your
Was that part of
Sunday.
the Second Vatican?
I don't remember when that started. I don't know. It might have been, but it used to always be just Sunday Mass.
Yeah. So I guess you're not exactly against church, but I guess if you are still following the principles of pre-1960, like, well, I guess I don't really understand their argument of what makes them just radical traditionalists, just because they're pro or they're anti-abortion. That's why. Those tend to be your most ardent anti-abortion supporters. Those are the people that, and next you're going to see, as an aside, it's pretty amazing that, by the way, we supposedly have the most devout Catholic president right now in office, and that's the group they're going after. What does that tell you? Yeah. Having said that, they're going to go after the same thing with the Lutherans and the Evangelicals and the Methodists and the Baptists, because these are groups that support pro-life. And many times in this document that the FBI, they do an investigative report and they generate this report, it's loaded with nothing substantiated. That's part of the problem. Okay? Right. No. It's highly speculative. It is poorly sourced, according to the person who wrote the article and documented it. But it has the term abortion in it so many times that it's kind of like a joke. You can see what their agenda is. Exactly. Targeting individuals who have a different opinion. This is also another example of politicization of the FBI, which is very much in the news right now because they have that committee started, the weaponization of all government agencies, and specifically right now the FBI they're looking at. You are forbidden in the FBI to open any cases or publish products, which is what this is. So they open a case, an investigative case. This is like podcast taboo that I'm about to do, but you don't
yeah.
want to chew on. But I ate onions for dinner.
So the reason why it's taboo is because it's based solely on First Amendment protected activities. So everyone should be concerned when the FBI is targeting a particular group. So let's think about this for a minute. They're going after people who attend, the radicals, who attend Latin Mass and, what is the other thing I said? Reject the Second Vatican Council. Right. Those are very strict religious concepts. Why is the government that is so big on the separation of church and state, now all of a sudden the FBI brings up a whole case about specific activities that are part of our First Amendment rights?
Yeah, interesting.
Citizens really need to wake up. They're not even hiding this anymore.
Well, it's tough because even in my head, I go, well, if they're not following the main church,
That's none of the government's business.
right?
That has nothing
I'm just
to do
thinking
with
of it
our
as
government.
a non-government person who's hearing that story. I can kind of see how you can kind of make the argument that they're kind of like a cult within the religion. See what I was
That's
saying?
like saying we got to target the Jews because anybody who reads the Torah is probably a terrorist. Okay? So anybody who still reads the Torah in Arabic or whatever, they're terrorist. This is just pure going after people's religions, and that's not right. It's not the place of the government. If we want to argue with our Pope about it, if Muslims want to argue with their imams about it, that's within your faith. It has nothing to do with the federal government.
Right.
If there's terrorists that are specifically in this group, okay, give us some sources. Show some evidence. They don't have that. They're just saying, we think, we're looking for. So what happens when the FBI does this is they open a case, which means that allows them to surveil those groups. They never get a full... It's not like a criminal investigation. It's just they open a case to say, well, now we're going to watch you. That's basically what it is. So any Catholic they deem extreme, they're going to watch. He's digging.
Oh, I was wondering what that sound was.
Well,
But our dog's digging into the couch. I was like, what the hell was that? Interesting. Yeah, but to go back to what you said, it is just weird to me that the Latin Mass still kind of exists in the sense of, yeah, it's still part of the Catholic faith. If they didn't say in the Second Vatican Council that it's not, or if they did say in the Second Vatican Council that it's not allowed and it's still going, then that's different. But you're saying that they do say it was.
You also have to keep in mind, too, people tend to be stupider in the sense that everybody knew the Latin Mass. So now because nobody studies Latin anymore and young people can't be bothered hearing it, it's the equivalent to going to a Spanish Mass, right?
Oh, that's true.
I don't know
that's
it.
True.
It's still Mass. It's still, but because it's in Latin, right? They don't want any ties to the old church. They want a new conservative, socialist, everything goes church.
But the only difference is the Spanish Mass is still in the modern day setting. It still follows the Second Vatican Council, right? They don't have their backs to the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess. I mean, I don't. Maybe. Well, there are some Latin masses in Spain. There are Latin masses in Italy. There are Latin masses in Europe, in parts of Europe. It's not. The Catholic Church has Latin masses. People do celebrate them from time to time. We know. My mother knew somebody.
But I guess the argument, and this doesn't have anything to do with really the argument with the article of FBI. But I'm just saying, what's the point of the Latin Mass? Like, why are you still going to the Latin Mass when you have ones in your native language?
Because
no one's practicing Latin anymore.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean people don't know Latin from the Mass. Like they know that you would know the Mass just on the English version. You would understand what was going on in Latin Mass. You have some Latin background, but just because it's the same format all over.
Right. So then let me ask you this: if someone who isn't Latin or doesn't understand Latin goes to a Latin Mass, could you make the argument that they didn't really go to church?
Well, that's the same thing like we said about going to a Spanish Mass or going to,
if you don't understand it, you're not really getting the spiritual aspect of church.
Right, but let's think about it. The only thing you're really not going to understand are the readings and the homily. Because everything else follows the traditional format.
That means that you're just trying to get some Eucharist and bounce.
Yeah, basically. Well,
right, so,
if suppose you're in a foreign country.
Yeah.
And you have no choice. You have to go to a Mass that's in a foreign language. That's still you are meeting your spiritual requirements by attending that Mass and receiving communion because you kind of know the framework of what's going on. You may not know the homilies and whatever, but if you have your own prayer book in English, they use the same Bible identification that everybody uses.
Right.
So whether it's Spanish or whatever.
But no matter where we go, it's still a modern day Mass. Whereas if I was to go to a Latin Mass right now, it would probably be pretty different.
No, I don't think it's that different. They want you to think that it's really different, but it's really not that much different.
It's just the flipped
priest,
really, right?
Everything else focus is well, I don't know. I don't think they deliver the homily in Latin, but I'm not sure.
But if the Catholic Church or our Pope said that it's void in the sense of the Latin Mass doesn't exist anymore, does that mean that the Latin Masses are considered not filling the requirements of...
That's what I said. So Second Vatican Council said, well, you can still go to the Latin Masses.
But that's not how the...
But it doesn't meet your requirement for the the week of once every 7 days you have to go to church on the eve of Saturday into Sunday.
Right. Interesting.
That's what the
That's
church
an interesting one because, I mean, I'm just thinking of the religious standpoint. I'm not thinking of the FBI
Yeah, it's
standpoint.
not really about the Latin Mass. It's the point of those are more traditional conservative Catholics.
But
Okay?
yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Right. And if you really want to rout out the traditional people, root them out, and get them out of the faith, that's what you go after. And now the FBI is doing a helping hand by saying, oh, yeah, those are extremists. We're now opening a case, and we're going to keep an eye out on them. Now, what does that then become? Is it everybody who goes to church one day a week? Do we have to now start watching them? Will they now be tracing Pancake 101 if he goes to church once a week? This is what I'm saying. Where does it end?
Yeah.
And they've opened the door to doing that. Now, since then, this article is before that. Since then, they've backed off on this.
Makes sense.
Are they really backing off? Who knows? But they got a lot of backlash for it because they can't do it. It's illegal. That's our First Amendment rights. You have to make a stronger case as to why you're targeting certain individuals other than, well, they're practicing their religion. You know, you can't do that. Well, the Pope doesn't say that's their religion. Yeah, but that's not how we
that's
operate.
A weird line, yeah.
We don't operate
Especially
that way anymore.
Also, it's kind of weird when the Pope... I think you can make the argument that the Pope's word isn't as powerful anymore amongst the Catholic faith.
Right.
So I think we're going to have a dilemma pretty soon of...
There's already a schism in the church, and this is part of it, and I think it feeds into it.
But right now it's a
guys involved.
non-talked about schism amongst the Catholic faith. We know it's there, but I mean, when is it going to be public news?
Well, it is
that there's a
public because
big
they have the synod on
division?
synodality right now going on.
What was that word you
The
just used?
synod on synodality. It's a synod, which is like a giant discussion group, for lack of a better term. And because we have so many, especially European, but plenty in this country, bishops who are supporting gays, gay marriage, LGBTQ, gender affirmation, right? All the stuff that has traditionally been not condoned in the Catholic Church. So instead of saying, which most popes would say, yeah, no, we got to crack down on this pope's answer was, well, let's talk about it and let's see. A very dangerous thing.
Here's the question, though. Is it the difference, though, are these popes and bishops, which I'm sure there are some that are pushing for it to be more common in the church, like make it part of the religion? Mm-hmm. How many of them are just accepting of the thought, not allowing the actual, like no changes to the actual religion or the mass itself, just saying, yeah, you can go to church if you're this, if you have pronouns, you're this. Like, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. Are they just vowing for it to...
They're hanging gay pride flags from the altar. Okay? They are saying really that it's acceptable. They are marrying people in their churches, which is not allowed.
Yeah, that's different.
Okay?
That's not allowed, yeah.
We have bishops that are openly gay and say it's fine. And keep in mind, the Catholic Church does not have a very good reputation when it comes to homosexuality.
Devil's advocate
especially
here,
with
though.
minor attracted people.
Yeah. Devil's advocate, though. Well, let's not even go down that road. We can't even make that argument after what our last pope did with the that pedophilia island.
Well, but remember, I just had an article about this current pope that I was shocked. I sent it to some people. I didn't bring it for this, but the stories in there are shocking.
Yeah.
That of people he has supported, not directly him, but people that he's turned a blind eye to, of real freaks, part of the synod people, and usually Jesuits. Yes, I will say it, which our pope was a Jesuit. I was educated by the Jesuits. They are probably some of the more radical group of priests out there, which is ironic because that was the conservative. St. Ignatius was all about education, conservative mentality. So go ahead.
Devil's advocate. Can you make the argument? Right, I'm gonna dig deep here.
Okay.
Priests and nuns are technically married to God. Doesn't that make all priests gay?
Well, God doesn't have a gender.
I thought in the Bible he did have a gender.
No, not really. I mean,
but Jesus calls him my father.
Yeah, I mean, it's a terminology, but God
Devil's advocate.
God's a, it's an entity
No,
that
I
you
know,
can't. It's not gender based, but no, I mean it's a nice way of saying. I've never really heard priests be married to God. Nuns are married to God because nuns wear wedding bands.
Oh, do they really?
Yes, they will wear a wedding band. I don't know if they wear it on this finger or if they wear it on the other hand, but they usually get that when they become a nun. They get a wedding band.
Oh, that's a fun.
So they're married to They are married to
That's
God.
gotta be one cheap ass wedding band though.
Oh my God.
That's like when they cut it off a ring pop.
Poor nuns.
Yeah, they take some shit, I will have to say. There's never that much in the...
Well, people always used to mock nuns because they wear the nerdy glasses and they had the ugly shoes growing up, and they tend to be older women. Well, that's because they have no money. So they would have to pool their money. They take a vow of poverty, many of them. Some of them don't nowadays, but they would pool their money in the convent. And if you needed glasses, you had to get the cheapest because everybody needed glasses. And as they all got older, they all needed glasses. So obviously the cheapest ones were not the most attractive. Yeah. Nobody's getting Dolce & Gabbana glasses.
Yeah, we're going to the dollar store.
Right. Same thing with the shoes.
Here's a question then for you, because as you guys have probably figured out, my mom's pretty religious.
I'm not pretty religious. That's not fair to say. I know my religion, but I don't consider myself religious compared to others.
Yeah.
Compared to you? Hell yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about those, what do you call them? Those speakers that make crazy amounts of money?
Evangelical speakers?
Yeah. Like, what do you think about that? Like those guys that are like, they'll put their hand out and cure a guy, I was amazed by how much money those guys rake in. I didn't realize, I thought it was maybe a couple $1,000s, they're just taking from the donations bar. These guys are making millions of dollars. How does that work out?
All I can tell you is they're followers of Christ, right? If you're going to amplify Christ, you got to really look at Christ. He owned nothing.
Right. You're preaching the word of God, but you're not following the word of God.
Well, you're not living his life. And that's not to say that Christ doesn't, condone pastors who get married and have a family, some religions, some faiths, because his apostles were all married men with families. Mm-hmm. So the Catholic Church is the one that designated, we're going to go with a vow of, they're never going to marry, a vow of chastity, the priest will stay single. They felt that was the best way to focus on their time as a priest, like their services, their abilities. Same thing with the nuns. But making money off the word of God, it's perverse to me. It doesn't really... Likewise, I think it's ridiculous when you see the Pope wearing the special shoes and living in these palaces and, he doesn't own it and it supposedly is part of the church. But the wealth in the Catholic Church, the artwork they own... Now, thankfully, they were able to preserve it because if they gave it all away, we wouldn't have this artwork necessarily. But the fact that the church owns that just doesn't resonate with me in regards to, the life of Christ. That's not what he was about.
I want to see what the Roman Church is. Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realize that the Catholic Church Vatican is worth $33 billion. I was like, where's all that money coming from? And then obviously it comes from the...
keep in mind from your history classes, the Catholic Church would fundraise the Medicis, mm-hmm. right? And Michelangelo. They paid for this beautiful artwork, and they did it because they wanted them to decorate for God. To the Sistine Chapel is a tribute to God. And they paid Michelangelo and his staff to do it for many, many years.
Have you ever seen, though, the...
That's priceless,
There's people that talk about the what's the word I'm looking for? Like when you look at a lot of the artwork, it's more so demonic than it is religious. Have you ever seen stuff on that?
In the Vatican?
In the Vatican?
Yeah. I don't know that's
so. What's the
specifically
name?
true.
I don't think it's some of it has weird dark architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to find there's a
well, heaven and hell with the depiction of what hell is, the hell of devils and
It's not like
questionable
activities
of people to show hell.
Here it is. So I don't know what this is a depiction of, but in the famous game Dark Souls, which I know you've heard of, mm-hmm. There's a boss fight where you fight two guys called Ornstein and I always forget the other guy's name. Famous fight where basically it's in a church, and people always say that this picture of the throne in the Vatican. People go, they call it they say, when I walk in, I know a boss fight when I see one. Oh, man, I just lost it. The Vatican throne. I'll throw a picture up, but you guys are going to go, what the hell? If only I can spell throne. Yeah, here we go. I know when I'm walking to a boss fight when I see one. It's this thing. If you saw that. It's kind of a crappy, blurry image. It has to load, but...
That's the Vatican? Or
yep, that's the Vatican. It's a weird throne room. Let's see.
I don't know that.
Come on, Internet. What's going on here? Tell me our internet's down. That would ruin my day.
It's not a secure site.
Yeah. Well, my thing does that all the time. See, it's like a weird, like it's almost like a tree, and then Jesus is in the front there. So that's how it's supposed to.
That's not the Vatican.
That's yeah, that's the Vatican.
I don't think that's the Vatican. No, that's a stage where he was performing. The Vatican is very different looking. St. Peter's Basilica. That's Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So see that the Vatican. So
no, I don't think that's
it's
the
called
Vatican.
Fazinzi's The Resurrection.
The Vatican's creepy sculpture.
That's a sick sculpture,
so
though.
where is
I think
that?
that's cool.
I don't know where that is.
Let's do some research. Let's see.
Well,
The Ficini Resurrection.
Fazzini,
Oh, there we go.
Fazzini?
That's a better picture. Look at that thing. So that's Jesus right there, and I guess these are. I think the idea is his rising, and these are all the souls that he's releasing from purgatory.
Okay.
I think, but isn't that's kind of a wild?
Yeah, that is, but I don't know where that is in the Vatican. All those freaking masses.
Have you
I would
been
watch.
there?
No, not yet.
Didn't think so.
Not yet.
Sponsor us. Someone send us
Your
over.
great grandmother met the Pope. Did you know that?
Which one?
Antoinette.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Why?
Uncle Sal took her over there. Boy, maybe before you were born. And you go. It wasn't a private meeting, but he has audiences.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't this Pope, obviously. She was dead before he was around. They do audiences, and if you know somebody, and I think he is friendly with a Monsignor. I don't know the whole story. You'd have to ask your grandfather, but yeah, she got to meet him as he walks around the crowd and says hello. You know, you're gated off in an area, and
It says that
I think it was John Paul II.
it says it's in Rome.
Looks like an amphitheater or something.
Story behind. No, it's definitely in the Vatican.
All right, I'll
Yeah.
do some research and see where it is. I've never seen it before. I'll get you some detail. About
Yeah,
it.
I'm curious. I think it's cool. People say, "Oh, that's a better picture of it." See that? So that's the stage that we were just looking at. So that's behind the stage.
No, I get it, but I don't
I
know
didn't
that
realize that.
stage does not fit in with the Vatican. Maybe there's another hall attached to it.
When you got 33 bill, Mom. When you got 33 bills.
Well,
Design. So, Parasol, Fazzini designed to represent. Oh, it must have been fairly new. Now I don't like it anymore. The sculpture by Piso Fazzini designed the piece The Resurrection to represent Jesus ascending from the explosion of a nuclear bomb.
oh, for
It
gosh
measures
sakes.
an enormous 66 feet by 23 feet by 10 feet. The wilted bronze color gives it the pieces falling of sickness and decay, while the mishaps knots around Christ's feet evoke images of dismembered hands and skulls. Now,
Why
is that in the Vatican,
Exactly.
right? So that's what I was just saying. So that's the demonic stuff that we were just talking about.
And I'm sure they paid a fortune for it too. You know.
$5.
Yeah.
$5. Okay, I got one. Speaking of anti-Semites, so Adidas dropping Kanye
Yeah, I saw that.
would cost more than $1 billion in sales, which is a lot for Adidas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the question, right? This is really the underlying question I have. I think we can all agree, whether you're right or left, Kanye's kind of gone
Off the rails.
off the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, we don't know the backstory, but just based off what we see and hear.
That's right.
Now, at what point is a person's where their image is more important to others than if they've gone crazy or not? Like, for what I mean here is, for as much as we gave Kanye shit, if he's costing Adidas $1 billion, does Adidas go? Like, at what point is it like? Well, like, why are people still buying Yeezys even though Kanye's gone off the rails? Is it because that the product is greater than the person, or is the person greater than the product? You see what I'm saying?
Well, they were selling, in theory,
They're
billion
still
worth of
selling.
Yeezy. I
Yeah.
thought you said it cost them that, so people aren't buying it anymore.
Could cost them $1 billion in sales. Well, no, because Kanye's leaving. So right, because they got
So
rid
he
of.
takes his shoes with him.
Right. So
Okay.
there's been a conspiracy theory, and it's not really a theory. A lot of podcasters who are somewhat close with Kanye have said this, but basically what ended up happening, I think I told you this, but the reason that Kanye went off the rails was kind of, they say it's some grand plan. Again, take it with a grain of salt. But basically the idea is he had an Adidas contract for his Yeezys.
Oh, right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeezys were basically Adidas said, "Hey, we're gonna make cheaper versions of the Yeezys and sell them." And Kanye was like, "That's my brand. You can't do
Right.
that. That's not part of the deal."
Right.
So they said, "Well, you're locked into a contract. We own Yeezy, so and we own you, so that's I mean, we're going to do what we want with it. So the idea was Kanye had to get out of this contract. So what he did was he decided to go the whole anti-Semitic
crazy.
and get out of that deal. So now he owns Yeezy again, and now he's making a lot of money in sales from his Yeezys, right? So he started his own shoe company. He's still selling them. So the question is...
I don't think I've ever seen a pair of Yeezys on anybody.
I've seen them. They're a very unique kind of... They're a unique shoe, and that kind of brings me back to the question that I just asked, which is like, say it's a style, whatever. People are still buying these Yeezys left and right. Is it because they like Yeezys and whatever, or is it that they? I don't know if it's they stand by Kanye, but think about it. Even with all the craziness that he's done in the last 6 months to a year, he's still selling his shoe like crazy. Why? Like, Adidas is losing money. Think about that. That's a huge company that's losing a lot of money on these Yeezys. So at what point do we go, well, the artist is greater than the art that they've created? You know?
Well, I think there's a lot of blowback with Kaepernick and Nike, right? And people were boycotting Nike. Nike didn't go under, right? Because people...
Well, Kaepernick's not that great.
No, but I'm saying people stuck with the brand. So... And like your brother pointed it out to me, well, at that time when Kaepernick was first starting his don't stand thing, and we were talking about boycotting Nike, and even Mike said, "Mom, it's like next to impossible to do because Nike is on everything." So your alternative is Adidas, which wasn't as big a brand a few years ago. I mean, it is now. Now New Balance is trying to make a name for itself, but it's true. You go to the stores and naturally everything is Nike.
Yeah.
And if you join a team, it's Nike, shorts. It's the Nike shirt. It's Nike backpack. Even the schools, some of them use Nike for their high school, college gear. So it's easy to say I'm going to ban. Yeah,
Reebok's the other one.
Reebok as much. Reebok's
I wonder
British.
if they got bought out. I don't know. I haven't seen
Reebok
Reebok
was probably
in a
when
long
I was
time.
in college, but then they started to die down, and Nike really kind of was elevated. So
do you remember Echo?
yeah,
They used to live up the street from from people we know.
Yeah.
Do you remember their house?
No, I never went to their house.
They would. So Echo shoes. The house was not that big. It was like a normal house for that area. But he would have on his driveway. He had like 6 Lamborghinis and like 4 Ferraris. Yeah. And they were all the same.
Yeah.
They're just different colors. I always thought that was hilarious.
I don't see Echo clothes that much anymore.
I think they got bought out. Maybe. They had to have.
Maybe.
I had to be in like high school when that happened. I have to see, but.
They were mentioned recently in church, but yeah. So if people like the product, the Yeezy product, and sometimes negative publicity isn't a bad thing either.
Yeah, but it's well.
Frankly, I never heard of Yeezy until
Kanye. Right.
Kanye brought it up, and Adidas said they were going to dump it. I didn't even know
question,
what his.
If I could ask Kanye when Kanye's on the podcast someday,
call in Kanye, please.
Yeah, please. I want to know why he even bothered signing with an Adidas beforehand. Like he had the money to do his own Yeezy line anyway. Like I don't know why he had to move with Adidas.
Well, I don't know either, but it's very possible he was involved in a lot of things at the time, like the music, the social life, everything else, and it was just easy for Adidas to say, "Hey, we'll do it for you. We'll do all of it for you. We'll give you a name, we'll give you the platform, and we'll give you, a huge amount of money to do it." Sometimes it's better when you partner with somebody versus doing it on your own because it takes a lot of startup money to do it. And they already had the infrastructure in place to produce the stuff and get it, market it, and put it out there. All they needed was his name and designs.
Yeah, I guess. Do you think we're going to look back on this in like 5 years and go, hey, come on. What time is it? It's only 8:50.
Oh, you got time. Go sit down. Go ahead. You want to sit down? Go ahead. Be quiet. We'll look back on this in 5 years.
Oh, yeah. Do you think that it's going to get to the point where Kanye... So here's the way I think of it. When you hear O.J. Simpson, what do you think of? Right?
Murder.
You don't think of football player, right?
Well, yeah, but no. Yeah,
first thing that comes to mind is murder.
Recent.
So with Kanye, I think right now the first thing that comes to... Like for O.J., that's going to last with him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
With Kanye, even though we went through all this anti-Semite stuff, he's still... Like, no one's buying OJ clothes anymore, right? Mm-hmm. Jerseys and stuff. With Kanye, people are still buying a crazy amount of Yeezys, listening to his music, all that stuff. How far does Kanye have to go before people stop buying this stuff. Like, I thought this was going to be the deal
Well,
breaker,
I mean,
to be honest with you.
I think it's unfair. I'm not a big fan of somebody calling people anti-Semites or making comments like that, but there's a difference between comments and being on trial for murder of your ex-wife
Fair
and
point.
a waiter. You know, obviously he wasn't convicted
I don't
of
think
it.
he did it, but
Whatever. The killer is still at large.
yeah.
But it's and in civil court he was found guilty and had
Yes.
to pay. So, I don't think it's fair to make that connection. A lot of people would like to do that because words can kill, words can hurt, words are evil.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't really think so. There's a big difference between actually killing somebody and saying things that hurt your feelings. Violence is different than words.
Truth be told, I think Kanye's going to be fine. Like, I don't think this is going to affect him at all. Yeah, they froze bank accounts and stuff, which is, I mean, that's a whole nother story. But from the standpoint of, if he's still selling Yeezys and making that, like, I don't think this is going to affect him at all financially. I think if he goes under we haven't heard of him in a couple months now. Well, actually, that's a lie. He, like, assaulted someone on the street. Someone's, like, taking a video of him. Did you see this? Where
I think he's really gone off the rail. Yeah, I think there's more to it than just contracts.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, there's a trigger for him. I don't know what his medical issues are, if he has any mental issues that are out of control when he started this, if it is this plan to get out of his contract. But I think there's more to his story than just financial. So we'll see where it goes. But, you have a point. Why are people still buying his stuff? If they don't care so much about the comments he has made, or they don't equate buying his sneakers to saying, oh, I agree with everything Kanye said.
Right.
If they even know, right? I mean, you're making an assumption that a lot of people that buy his clothes, and I don't know, but many of them have no idea about the controversy. Maybe they don't even know he's not with Adidas anymore. They just like the shoes,
Yeah. So, I mean, given Kanye's built a much bigger dynasty than OJ ever could have, but I don't know. It's just weird to see someone that's been canceled probably like 5 times in the last 2 years.
These are different people too. So Kanye was the music industry. Kanye, I forget what else he was involved in. He took it to close. O.J. Simpson was a football player, a great football player. I think he's a Hall of Famer if they didn't take him out.
There's no way he's in the Hall of Fame.
Then went into acting briefly.
Did he really?
Yes, he was in Airplane, which is a very popular movie series when we were
I didn't
before
realize
all
he was
this.
in that movie.
Yes, and he was in but he did like TV shows. He was like the Tom Brady of his day, for you guys, and the Aaron Rodgers of his day, and he really screwed up. He just got
debatable,
very messed up. Well, even if you don't think he was guilty, he had a very questionable life there, and a lot of things were exposed. And the Mr. Great one wasn't so great. And I actually knew somebody through work whose family lived near them in Buffalo when he used to play for the Bills. Mm-hmm. And this person even said there was that was with his first wife, before the second wife, who was murdered, when the murderer was still at large. She used to say the police were called all the time for abuse.
Really?
Yeah. So there was a history there that, back then, like the O.J. Simpson days and the Joe Namath days, you didn't hear that stuff. They hush that.
Right.
It's not like today we have the internet and everybody knows everybody's business, and every athlete out there, it's become, I don't want to say acceptable, but expected that they're going to beat somebody, especially a woman or somebody, get in trouble.
Right. To your point, back then it wasn't really heard of. Like, stuff's not on video camera all the time. Like a professional athlete can't take a step out their door without someone knowing what they're doing.
That could have damaged his chances of the Hall of Fame if he was.
I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I mean, I'm saying an athlete like that, you can't have that negative stuff. Their PR guys would be all over you for that. You can't, nowadays it's considered, it's expected.
Oh,
it's considered an expected thing to be, a young guy who has a criminal record before he even gets into the NFL or the NBA. And, look at now. Every other day, somebody else is up on charges for something or involved in some nefarious activity. Right. It's just become acceptable. I don't agree with it, but, that's the culture.
Yeah, You know who's better? I'm trying to transition here. You know who's a better athlete than O.J. Simpson?
Who?
All those power slap fighters.
Oh my God.
Another new low for power slap ratings in week 4. So I don't know if you know this, but so the UFC owns power slap. So
Yeah, I
Dana
know, we talked
White
about that.
is the one like hosting all this. The ratings are just going. I don't know what Dana was thinking, but basically the argument that Dana made is, if you know the history of the UFC, it started as everyone was like, why would anyone watch these barbaric sports? And then it just grew to what it is now, where everyone's talking about it. Dana's basically saying that power slap's going to be the same thing. So the ratings are so low. So just so you know, the share last night, so power slap came in at number 68 for the night with 275,000 viewers and a .08 share in the 18 to 49 ranges. This number is a new low for White's attempt to break into something other than MMA. So it's not that big of a gap from the last time, but you're not doing too well, right? So one thing I learned, I don't know if I said this on another podcast or the last podcast, you only get 2,000 for showing up and 2,000 for winning. So in total, you might get $4,000,
which won't even cover your hospital bill for the concussion test.
Yeah, I mean, some of these slaps, it's just stupid how this is still going week 4. I thought this was like a joke when you've hit rock bottom, but Dana's like, no, let's build it up. The fact that people like, Mom, what if tell me honestly, Michael comes home, right? He goes, Mom, I got this big dream. Michael goes, Mom, Dad, I want to be a professional slap fighter. What do? Take me through the steps.
Oh, easily I would say then you have your own medical insurance. You're not doing your own medical because it's going to cost a fortune.
Right.
But, here's the irony. We just went through, a big controversy in the NFL about concussions. Mm-hmm. They create new helmets for it. People are now suing because of past things that have happened. And we've watched people die over it. These men have died from being banged around. So let's create another sport where there's no helmet and you just smack them and they have a concussion. It's nonsensical of what we're allowing.
It's so stupid. Yeah, at that point, like what people were saying about the UFC back in the day of it being barbaric, same thing with this. But this is even more so because the difference between like boxing, UFC, and power slap or whatever is in UFC and boxing, you can defend yourself. Mm-hmm. In power slap, you just sit.
Take it. Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to show you how they do it on my mom.
So why is that okay? You can create concussions in that sport.
Well, I mean,
can't
concussions
do it in the other sports.
When you have, concussions is actually more so probably the least of your worries in that sport. You can hemorrhage, like internal bleeding.
Well, couldn't you also kill somebody if you hit them in the temple?
Oh, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
They have these makeshift rules where it's like you can't hit back in this area, and it's like, or what? The slap's still gonna go through anyway. So.
And who's liable when that other person dies?
I don't know.
Dana
I have to think that the UFC is, but
because I don't care how many papers they have you sign before you do that. Yeah. Somebody's suing somebody.
Well, someone's gonna die eventually. Like what I mean by that is,
they have so many tournaments that last one is something's gonna hit him.
And it's like, I won, and then 2 days later the guy dies because he had internal bleeding in his head. Yeah. That you're gonna see that pretty soon. I truly believe that. So what happens, to your point? Where's the insurance in this? Right. One of the big problems in the UFC is
and I'd also like to point out, if a frat house did that as hazing, they would be shut down. It is not allowed.
Yeah. I guess because it's sanctioned, I guess it's not really sanctioned.
No, but I mean, this is the absurdity of it, and I don't know why it's being allowed.
It's just a bad idea in general.
It's a bad idea, and you're catering to the lowest level of humanity that wants to sit there with a beer in their hand and say, "Oh, all right, let's watch the slap fights," because they know they're watching just for the sheer grotesqueness of it.
Grotesqueness, or because they find it so stupid it's funny.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of YouTubers that watch it because it's content that they can talk about on how stupid it is. There's no one I've yet to see a video of anyone saying how great power slap is, or they say it as a joke.
I mean, I don't want to say there's no skill involved, but
there's no skill. It's just, it's just who can line up a shot better and not hit a guy. You're supposed to hit here, but guys will purposely hit back here because it'll knock them out.
Well, they used to do arm wrestling. They used to do arm wrestling, but that's not salacious enough. It's got to be worse.
Arm wrestling. You know what's funny? You say that arm wrestling. has gotten so popular on TikTok. There's this guy named, I think it's Devin Larrett or whatever. He's known as like the best arm wrestler of all time. The difference between arm wrestling and slap fight is real arm wrestling. Like the technique behind it is so much more in depth than just if I was to take your hand and whatever. There's rules to, like, there's just technique and stuff.
And it's defensive too.
Yeah,
so at least
you're going back and forth.
Right.
And
you
these
can
guys
still get injured.
Yeah,
it's still risk.
These guys aren't like when you see those videos of people breaking their arm wrestling. Yeah. That doesn't happen in the professional.
Right.
Because they have the protections and all. It's actually like a, I guess, regulated sport. Slap fight, it's just let me line this up and see how hard I can hit the guy. There's no. In fact, I would go as far to say that it makes the UFC look bad. That Dana is
sanctioning it.
Yes, it actually makes the UFC fighters look bad. I'm gonna throw that in there. Yeah. It's not a. It just makes us go, oh well, if this is equal to UFC, it's a joke.
Right. And I'd be annoyed for those athletes out there because they are out there. I remember when the NHL started to require helmets for everybody, and the traditional players, they didn't like those helmets because they couldn't play as well. Right. It blocked their view and whatnot. They didn't want to wear them, and I think for a while there they were allowed to. It was optional, right? So for those in the NFL who now have to wear the helmets, special helmets, it has to be worn all the time. You can't knock it off, blah, 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 blah. And meanwhile, you have another sport going on where there's no helmet and they're just pummeling somebody in the head. It just doesn't seem why that would be allowed in society versus it's what is the value of it? Again, you're either just watching it for the grotesqueness. I can't speak tonight because it's so grotesque, or you're watching it, to make fun of it. And what kind of sport is that? That's not really something you want to achieve.
One thing that Harley said to me, my cousin Harley, he said this with a headbutt, and it's kind of the same thing. He said no one wins with a headbutt, and that's basically what it is. Right, nobody wins with a headbutt.
I don't care how strong you are. You're eventually going to meet your match. Somebody's going to be stronger, and there's only so many slaps you're going to take before you get seriously injured.
I don't want to be the guy that's he's won 7 champions, and he's walking up like, yeah. There's nothing left in there, and he's like, It's just a bad idea. Dana, please stop. Please stop.
It makes me think of the Angelina Jolie did that movie Unbroken. I read the book about the I can't think of his name, and I'm sad I can't. Italian guy that was prisoner of war in the Japanese internment camp. Unbroken, it was called. And the one Japanese general just had it out for him.
The actual name of the guy is Louis Zamperini.
That's right, Zamperini. And one of the punishments was, and think about this, how hard this would be for anybody, the person doing it as well as him. His whole squadron that was in prison with him had to come up and punch him in the face as hard as possible. Oof. And he had to take it. And this went on for a long time. They pummeled him, and he said, go ahead, do it, because he knew they were going to get killed if they didn't do it. So, it was a lose-lose. And they felt bad. They're like, who wants to do that? This is their fellow servicemen, their friends, they're suffering together. And he says, do it. It's okay. Do it. And they just pounded on him. He lived, and wrote the book, and Angelina Jolie did the movie. The book is great. But I just remember reading that and thinking, oh, my God, can you imagine what that must have felt like? And they weren't allowed to pull the punches. So this is how cruel these guards were. They were watching these men, and if they didn't punch them hard enough, they had to do it again. Right? God. I mean, this is just the psychological warfare that goes on, and but I think of that with the slap fighting. I'm like, here's somebody that had to have it done, and these people are opting to do it. There's just something bizarre about that. Yeah. Something really, how much fame
there's
do you really
no
want?
Upside. That's really what we're trying to say here. There's zero upside to this. Oh, $4,000. Okay. Right. No offense, but most
they're
of
getting attention, right? But
hey, name a slap fighter.
But I'm saying, well, if it takes off, they're getting their 5 minutes of fame. But the point is, what are you aspiring to? It's not like a boxer who wins the match, right? Yeah. Like you said, it's a defensive as well as offense. You're just aspiring to get the crap beaten out of you. So you're going to win. And what do you think? People are going to be like, oh, yeah, you took a good slap.
good job.
Bro,
you're right.
You really built up your face muscles so that you could withstand a slap. What's the point,
Yeah. What's this? Do we have any to transition to? Wait. I don't have any.
I have one medical
lines.
And one
science. Give me the science one, because I don't see the. You only sent me 2. I don't know what your third one is.
Huge piece of the sun breaks off.
What?
Is that one of the 7 signs of the apocalypse?
Wait, what?
Yeah. Huge piece of the sun breaks off, and scientists are stunned. Okay? Ooh. So the sun emits solar flares, and those are called prominence. That's what they name each one. One piece broke off. It's circling the north pole of the sun. It's like in a little vortex, creating a little vortex. The scientists are stumped. They've never seen a piece like this break off and circulate in the sun's atmosphere like
It's
that.
getting ready to throw.
It's Thor. He's got fling his,
This is called the ultimate meteor.
Flash,
Yeah.
or who's the one with the fire? Yeah, and there's a great picture
Human
of it
Torch,
in the article.
Mom. Get it together.
Polar vortex. Well, let's talk about a polar vortex. It's a solar vortex.
Yeah, it's a solar vortex on the north pole of the sun. It's saying.
Right. It broke off from a northern prominence, which is a solar flare, and it broke away from the main filament and is now circulating in a massive polar vortex around the north pole of our star. Implications for understanding the sun's atmospheric dynamics above 55 degrees here cannot be overstated. So they're just stunned. I mean, things have happened before, but they've never seen it break off like this and just spiral around. And like I said,
That's interesting because I thought, how can something break off that's like physical when the sun is just a giant ball of gas?
well, as a solar flare,
Yeah.
I think the flare itself emits, and it's almost like throwing a flame.
Right,
but
and
it gets
the flame's
caught in
still
the
going,
atmosphere.
right? Yeah,
and it
so it's
keeps
not a
going.
solid object. It's just a flame.
Right. They don't make it sound like it's a. I mean, they're calling it a flare, but it's a.
See, my question is,
Materials.
if that was to get thrown off the sun and go towards a planet or something, hypothetically speaking,
Yeah.
if you don't have, depending on how big it is, it's probably going to freeze before it gets anywhere, right? It'll probably fizzle out because it needs to stay alive with the sun's heat. So after a certain amount of thousands of miles, it's probably going
I
to burn
don't
out.
know as a gas if it liquefies, if it starts to cool off. If it's a gas,
Yeah,
gas
but
goes to a
eventually if
liquid.
it's in, I mean, how cold is space, right? When it's that far and doesn't have a main body of
Well,
heat.
it's not cold near the sun. It's very
Right,
hot
so
by
I'm
the
saying if it was to
sun.
get thrown at
It's got to
like
go
a,
really far.
yeah,
That sun. I mean, the sun warms us, and how far away is the sun?
yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Burns our skin, and how far away is it? It's got to go pretty far to get away from that heat.
Yeah. Let's just hope that thing doesn't come anywhere near us. Because, right, if the sun would, there's like a saying how if the sun was like 100 feet closer or something like that,
Yeah.
like we'd be in some
I know.
deep shit.
It's
Like if the sun moves like a foot over to the left or right,
Mm-hmm.
like our entire environment changes,
yeah.
which is kind of wild to think about. Where's Neil deGrasse Tyson? We need
That's
him
your
on.
real climate change.
That's scarier to me than like a greenhouse gas
I know.
problem, right? That's
they-
like the real.
they
And
watch
this
the
might be the
sun.
wake up call.
They
when we
watch
go.
the sun round the clock.
Yeah.
The sun is monitored round the clock. It keeps throwing surprises, like the multiple powerful flares this month that disrupted communication on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So it does affect us to some degree. I guess the satellites and
Yeah, there's like a
whatnot going on up there, you get some wiggy things going on. But here's the thing, going back to that whole religious thing, people are under the impression, especially if you talk to some of those fundamentalists, that the hand of God comes down and destroys the earth because he's had enough. I don't know, maybe that's true. But then again, for those of us watching The Last of Us, I started watching that series.
How is it? I know it's very good.
It's interesting.
Everything gets like 9 or 8 out of 10.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's early. I don't know how long they're going to go with this because, it's like,
Well, it's based off a video game, right?
oh, probably,
Right,
but
that's what I
it's,
told you.
It's The Walking Dead. Similar concept, where you have the infected people, blah, blah, blah. But
I like how my mom's trying to explain to all the gamers who have played the game 10 years ago.
well, I'm just saying for somebody watching it. So
Go
Walking
ahead.
Dead was a TV show. You had that concept that might have come from a game also, where you're chasing.
Yeah.
There are themes in games
I have to
too.
see which one comes.
But my point to what I was saying was that's a fungus, right? And the very beginning of the show, the series, for those who are watching it, there's a doctor that they interview, like the 1960s, I think he is, that talks about, well, if we were ever to get a fungus, there's no cure for it, and that could wipe out humanity because we have no means. You can't use, it's not like a COVID, if you will, where it's viral. A fungus is something different. Oh, but that'll never happen because a fungus can only survive if the body's at a certain temperature.
Right.
But if the temperature goes down, he says, we could be wiped out. So I always look at, people assume humanity will be wiped out by the hand of God. I think, in my opinion, I think God has more poetry than that. I think it's going to be something of that nature that will be the hand of God, but more biologically based. Like something like you said, if the sun were to move a slight amount,
It changes
we'd all
everything.
dead. We'd all die. So my answer to that is scientists would say, well, it's all science. I say we're in the hands of God. That's what keeps us alive here.
The real argument is like when you really think about it, like those people who are like completely atheist. What?
I feel like it's cricket, but that's okay.
Those people that are truly atheist, when you look at how, I mean, think about where the sun is placed in comparison to the earth, like how perfect the distance is.
Yeah.
If it's a foot further, it's too cold. If it's a foot, right? I mean, how do you look at that and go, it's probably just coincidence? I mean, technically speaking, if you have an unlimited number of options because the space is unlimited, one's gonna hit, obviously, like one's gonna work out, and that could be us, but let's play odds here.
Right.
There's got to be something making those decisions, right?
Right, and things that stop it too. You always get that miracle comet that came and knocked the Earth an inch back. We're throwing these things out. I mean, it didn't happen, but okay. So where'd that comet come from? You know what I mean? Like, there's always hope.
Yeah.
You always want to believe that there's hope.
It's just chance.
Right.
Like,
So,
it's tough to. Yeah.
well, even that video game and the show, you do have characters that are surviving it. Those are the people you're working through the game. I assume it's the same as the show, where they have to get
just
to
Ellie
the
and
Joel.
the game. Yeah, the game's just Ellie and Joel.
Right, and they have to work their way through QZs and zones and whatnot, and get past.
Want me to
zombies
spoil
and
the
whatnot.
ending
No,
for you?
No, no. But anyhow, so that's why I think something like this, with pieces of the sun break off, you go, is that the first sign of the 7 signs of the apocalypse? But is that the sign that maybe someday the world will end? When will it be? We don't know. Things could collide. That's what got us started in the first place, right? The science side of it. Things could happen again. But I think it was interesting. Sometimes I think it's good to see these things also to remind us that we are just a small part of the universe.
Right. Now, here goes the transition. Now, if only we knew a guy who had rockets and owned Twitter. Elon Musk threatens to remove.
Ooh, smooth. Yeah.
My transitions are getting too good. Episode 32. It took me 32 to get it down. Elon Musk threatens to remove legacy blue check marks on Twitter because they are truly corrupt, he says.
I didn't bring a pen.
So this goes back to...
because I can't remember these things.
This goes back to when Elon first bought Twitter.
Right.
And they were getting rid of the blue check marks.
The legacy,
so they were, right. It was you're going to have to pay X amount a month. So people have been paying X amount a month. And I will say, it's kind of been bothering me too, because I'll see people who are verified like my stuff, and I realize it's just people paying the $8.99 a month for the verifications. So I'm like, is this someone I should be paying attention to that's liking my stuff versus just some kid that pays for it on his mom's credit card or whatever? Right. So to his point, I think it's the Twitter blue verification symbol means nothing anymore.
Well, I guess so. I mean, I assume that you have to earn it. You pay for it and you get it. Are you telling me some people could just get it without paying for it?
No, you just pay for it.
Oh.
There's no credentials anymore for what you need for it. There's different versions of it, and truth be told, Twitter didn't do a good job at explaining the differences. So
but
I know that
how can I buy multiple ones?
Why would you have
do they only do one for your name?
It's per account. So if I have multiple accounts, I'd have to pay $8.99 for each account.
To verify that you're Pancake 101, but you can't do 8 Pancake 101s. You'd have to have different identities, right?
Yeah, it would have to be like Pancake 101, Pancake 102, Pancake 103.
What's wrong with that though?
No, you
because you're
do
all
that.
the same person?
Yeah. I think you're missing the point here. So it's not the verification check mark. To your point, it's to verify that you are the person behind the. This is a real person.
Yeah.
But because it's been different for the last 8 years, which was like it used to be, a verification check mark means you have a certain amount of followers and you are a Twitter celebrity, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
Politician, whatever. You're an important person, right, to Twitter.
But could it be? But was that based on real followers? Or
It was
could they
based
be
on
fake
real followers.
Okay.
Well, I mean, your follower count, real or fake, it doesn't really matter. Back then, they didn't really know. But now it's just, okay, well, we know that there's a lot of bot accounts,
right,
so most of these aren't real anyway.
You can't do that way anymore.
But the answer wasn't, let's pay $8.99 for it, because now everyone has a blue check mark. There's actually more blue check marks than people who don't.
So how can't you verify if they're bot accounts or not before you give a check mark to somebody?
That's what I mean. I think Twitter should have done that. My guess is out of all the priorities, Elon didn't care about that. It was just, if you want, just buy it. I don't think we realize the importance of that blue check mark, which is like, well, sponsors want to work with those blue check mark people. right? They want to.
Yeah.
But if you have that blue check mark and you only have 100 followers, a sponsor's not going to want to do business with them. So I think Elon's starting to realize that that's a bad idea.
Well, it's not supposed to be a bad idea, but I think he was desperate at the beginning to make money because he realized he bought a big old nothing.
Yes.
And that was a quick way, because it's going to cost money to check bots versus make money to not bother doing that and just give the blue check marks away. I can see why
Here's
the initial
listen,
process was
Elon,
that.
listen to me. I might have to talk to Uncle to tell us to Elon. But what Elon should have done is, if you want a verification check mark, that's fine. Like, if you have to pay for it, whatever. You have to make another series of check marks that people have to earn to show that they're public figures. Like, it's actually probably better for people to have multiple check marks than just one. I know that there's a blue one, a yellow one, and a white one. I don't know the difference. And Twitter did not do a good job at telling people the difference.
Yeah.
Excuse me. The quick check's starting to come back up.
Thank God I'm your mother.
So that's what I mean. I think that the checkmark system needs to be vastly improved, and there needs to be more of them. I don't think the answer is getting rid of them, because then you have just as much chaos the opposite way, as in now there's a lot of unverified accounts, or the accounts that are verified are all bot accounts. You have to have a checkmark system for people that actually earned it. Like, this has 100,000 followers. And is a real person, doing X amount of posts every year, stuff like that. You can't just have one shoe fits all and buying that. So I just think getting rid of the blue check marks makes more sense to me. But I do think that you have to make more categories for it, rather than just either keeping it all or getting rid of it all is not the answer. You just need more check marks for more identifying factors, I guess, is what I'm looking for real accounts.
So you think he should offer more than just one type of check? He should be able to qualify for different type of check marks.
Yes.
Okay.
People like a reward system. So if one thing that Social Blade does for all of our YouTube stuff, I'll show you real fast.
If you go get a certain number of viewers, you move up a check. You move from a blue to a red.
If it's so with Social Blade.
Yeah, but he's not making any money doing that.
Well, if you pay per month to be able to be in that reward system, that works.
Yeah.
Right? So you could do it that way. But, like, here's our Social Blade, right? So this is the channel from X amount of years ago. So this goes all the way up. This is our viewers every day. See, they have, what is this? So Badge of Wisdom, you created their own account at least 5 years ago. Badge of Uploading, 500 or more videos. Badge of Social Butterfly, yes. And then have a Twitch account linked. So, like, I like those badges. It shows that I'm a real person and that you're working towards something.
Right.
500 videos is a huge feat. So I wish they did something more like that than just, here's a blue check mark that you pay $8 a month for. And shows that you're doing something.
Yeah, well, I like I said, I don't think that's his priority right now. I can't speak for Elon. We could put Kanye on hold if Elon would like to call into the podcast. But I think the point
we have a better chance of getting Elon on here than Kanye. With our
I think it's too late to talk crazy anyhow, so better Elon. I think my guess is it's probably something he's working on, but there's so much stuff going on right now with Twitter, between the hearings and what was going on before and straightening all that out with their misinformation board and everything else. I think the least of his concerns are the blue checks right now. Yeah. Just make some money, get people back on. They're still putting people back on platforms. Yeah. I'm shocked at that.
Well, I'm just thinking of Twitter's going through a shit show right now with the hearings that they're doing.
That's what I just said, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I blinked for a second, I guess.
The misinformation board, as you're uncovering stuff.
We could do a whole podcast on that. Honestly, you guys just look it up, because we could do a whole...
Right, so they're uncovering a lot of problems that prior to Elon Musk that Twitter had. Things that they swore they didn't do, and now we're finding out they actually did do it.
The quick summary is, remember those crazy conservatives that you were talking, that everyone was like, oh, they're crazy, they're not shadow banning? Turns out they were 100% correct on the shadow banning, the misinformation, all that stuff. So, hey, YouTube, you can't suppress us for that one.
Right, and now it's, there's questions about criminal activity and suppressing First Amendment rights. So that's seems to be more Elon Musk's concern right now, but he does have to make money on this thing because he's got to pay people and he's got to pay, for buying it. and he's handing out these blue marks and trying to slap together some system where you make as much money as you can and organize it better. Then I think you go in and you can tweak it like you're saying. But I just made this point. He's still unbanning people. So they're still going through the process of fixing the mess from before and make it a legitimate free speech platform for everybody. Once you do that, then you can start weeding through who are the actual people that are on it versus bots versus doing a badge system, like you said, or some sort of levels of payment. You know, you be this level of white check, blue check, whatever he wants to do. But, you know, I don't know that it's, for you guys, it's a bigger deal.
The one thing I will say, though, is the one thing he is doing right is Twitter's a lot better than it used to be before he owned it. Like, I've said this before, but I am amazed by how fast he did turn the app itself around in the sense of it's not all politics anymore. It's not... like you would open it up and it's just politics. Now it's like more made for you. There's nothing being pushed into your face unless you want it to be.
Oh, that's good.
So from the actual infrastructure of Twitter for the people, the consumer, it's really good right now.
Okay.
Whereas, again, I don't know the business side of it. And as we're hearing with the hearings, it's there was a lot before Elon got there that was problem.
Well, that's not the business side of it. They had more business then because they had advertisers and whatnot.
Right.
I believe once he bought it, the advertisers all left. But I think they're starting to come back. I haven't done full research, but they're starting to come back. The platform you said is improving, and he's also generating with the checks and whatnot. I thought I saw some ridiculous amount for corporate check marks, like $10,000 to get a corporate check mark.
Yeah, so that might be that would make sense for if you're a company that has a website.
Yeah.
So like if you're Apple.
Yeah.
Like Apple's got its own Twitter page. So that's what I mean. You need verifications for specific things. They can't, like, Apple should not be paying only $8 a month.
Oh yeah, I think they do pay more.
Yeah, they do. So that's what I'm saying. I just don't know those check marks. I don't know if a yellow one's a corporate one or.
Right, there is some
like just paying for a verification doesn't do much for me.
I thought they were all blue.
I've seen yellow ones. I've seen white ones.
Okay.
So. Yeah, but let me tell you something. I think Elon needs a vacation because Amsterdam.
Oh, I saw
there
this.
we go. Did you see that?
I saw this. They're banning drugs in certain areas.
Amsterdam bans public cannabis smoking in the red light district. So, for our younger viewers, would you like to explain what Amsterdam is?
Amsterdam
Because it's kind of more
city.
your time from when.
Well, no, but they're known for the red light district. So it's a originally socialist country where anything goes. So it's basically like California today, San Francisco today. So they have the sex shops, they have the drug shops.
Yes, prostitution's legal there.
It's a beautiful city, but it's also an open society. Anything goes. There's no crime for that. But now they're experiencing.
It was when I was growing up, people would say Amsterdam is like the party central. Right, like when people say
because it's legal,
everything's legal there. Right. So now that they're starting to ban stuff, because I'm guessing it's starting. People have there's kind of it's a weird stereotype that Amsterdam has if you go there, and what I mean by that is you go there to party. No one's going there to like just for a vacation, right? There's a reason you're going there.
Yeah,
that's the stereotype. So I think now that.
But all those things bring with them crime.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're seeing in this country, sure, it's great, legalize drugs. Crime comes in, okay? You got people on drugs. They steal drugs from other people. They steal money from other people to buy more drugs.
Well, I was watching something recently where there's, for the last 10 plus years, probably more, in Amsterdam, they have, and I could be slightly off on this, but in Amsterdam, if you have a marijuana shop, you are able to sell marijuana. Mm-hmm. It's actually illegal to get the marijuana for the shop. How ass backwards is that? So if you get caught selling to the stores, because they have to sell, the store and the dealer get in trouble. Right. But it's okay to sell once it's in the store.
Yeah.
Isn't that super ass backwards?
Yeah. I mean, we have crap like that here in this country with like cigarettes and whatnot. You can't sell cigarettes on the street. It has to be sold by a vendor. And the rules in New York City, that's where it wasn't Floyd. It was somebody else. The big guy. The
Mike
I
Tyson?
Can't Breathe. No.
Oh,
the
George Floyd?
Man they took down in New York City before George Floyd. It was in New York. And he was a big guy. And 5 cops took him down. And he's like, I can't breathe. And he died. Okay. He was pre-George Floyd. But he had a whole big I Can't Breathe became the talking points of people that were anti-police violence. The reason why the police were dumping the guy was
Eric
because,
Garner.
Yeah, he was selling cigarettes outside of a bodega, okay, or a grocery store in New York City, and that's illegal. You can't do that because you have to buy them in the store. Otherwise, everybody would do it. But he's trying to make some money and blah 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 blah.
It's like a ticket scalping.
Right. So the guy called the police. The police came, and it turned into a civil rights movement because he was a very big man. It took 5 cops to took him down, all because he was selling cigarettes. Which I even look at it like, oh, are you kidding me? It took 5 guys to take him down over cigarettes. It's a misdemeanor infraction. But that's how crazy New York City is with their rules and regs. Yeah. God forbid you try and sell something when they have a law against it. You know, the vendors get all crazy. The stores get all crazy. So, yeah, Amsterdam, the same story. You know, there's probably crazy rules regarding all of it. But that gives you another, wherever you have rules like that, you also get the crime. People try and break the rules. You get the criminals. And we now know from discussions on the podcast too, marijuana today is a lot stronger and causes a lot more problems than marijuana from when I was younger and before that. It's laced with all sorts of stuff. It's creating terrible violence in young people if they use it long enough. And I'm sure they're experiencing that in Amsterdam now with that and other drugs. And also the sex trade, you know, prostitution. That brings a whole host of problems with it too. You have sex trafficking, children trafficking. And, you know, that's not a touristy thing. Nobody's going
that's
there
what I mean. The stereotype with Amsterdam is it's like, as you said, everything goes. It's kind of like in those movies where you see almost like the pirates who can do anything they want. It's kind of that area. That's basically what that place is. That's why people go there.
Right.
I don't know what the levels
and by the way, you don't have to go there anymore because everybody's legalized it.
Exactly, yeah.
So they lose their tourist industry.
So the complaint that they were making is that the people that actually do live in Amsterdam are like, hey, it's getting too out of hand with the tourists and the city's kind of falling apart. So it's about time we make some changes. Right. And now, basically, Amsterdam's not going to be the big party central it used to be. So my question is, where's the next party central, Mom? Is it Cancun? I feel like Cancun's kind of been building itself up.
I don't know. I think there was just recently a travel ban to Mexico from the United States.
Really?
The State Department listed Mexico.
Has it really gotten that bad down there with the cartels?
It's pretty bad.
Wow. That's upsetting.
I mean, there was another American couple that was killed down there at some resort just recently, a couple weeks ago, a week ago.
Yeah, don't go to Mexico.
Well, they're all coming here. They're all coming. I shouldn't say the Mexicans. There's more people that pass through Mexico that come here, which is even more illegal because they're coming as asylum seekers. Well, you don't pass through a country as an asylum seeker.
Yeah.
By right, you go to the next country. Yeah. So it's a scam what they're doing in Mexico.
I think too many people don't know how that works. Like people go, oh, you can just go anywhere. No, that's not really the definition of seeking asylum. Yeah. You can't just pick a random country and go, that's where I'm going to go for asylum. That's not how it works.
Right.
That's why the argument is, well, it's not really an argument. It's a fact that you would be considered illegal immigration if you tried to do that.
Right. So, right, because there's a law.
But they're seeking asylum. Right. No, Miss AOC, it doesn't work. Yeah. So.
No, you can't seek asylum from Colombia or any other country, really, if you're coming in through Canada, which is another example, or you come in through Mexico. You'd have to stop in that country where you don't feel the threat anymore. The next country, you don't feel a threat. Mm-hmm. Like you see in the old movies where they just got to get to the border where the guard is with the gun, you know, to get asylum in the next country. Once you're over that line, technically the other country can't take you anymore. So you race to that line.
Well, that's the DMZ zone in Korea.
That's an example of it, yes. Yeah, they used to have it with the Berlin Wall.
Well, they had those people
Russian countries.
In North Korea, if you get past that south border, I mean, you're free.
Yeah. Very hard to do, but it does happen.
There are some people that have figured it out.
They have escaped. They've left family behind and whatnot. But, so that's the issue with drugs and, you know, these countries, that there really is no place that is banned anymore. So you don't need to go to Amsterdam. So not only are they getting more crime, they're not getting the tourist dollars they used to. People aren't coming as much as they were before. So that special side of Amsterdam has worn off. There's no need to truck over there.
There's nothing really special anymore about Amsterdam, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. What's your last one? I saw that one. It's a cancer one. I can't really. It's hard to transition that one.
Well, drugs can cause cancer. And speaking of cancer, there you go. Got it.
There we go. Okay, transition. It's here, I got you. If you can't find it,
Not Aristophanes.
It's radiology. Oh,
Yeah.
Radioligand therapy. Is that how you pronounce that?
Radioligand therapy.
Game changer for cancer treatment, forces manufacturers to race against a ticking clock.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's a new type of radiation. So I just sent it to you, right? I just want to pull it up so I have it, Chris. Not this one. How come I only have one here?
Which one?
That I sent you. Oh, I sent this to both of you. Okay. Yeah, here it is.
Are you talking about the...
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a game changer for cancer treatment and forces manufacturers to race against a ticking clock. So basically, this is Novartis, which is a pharmaceutical company. They make 2 of these products, okay? It delivers radiation to cells directly. It limits the damage to healthy tissue. So when a person has cancer, one of the protocols is chemotherapy and then radiation. The problem with radiation is it burns a lot of the healthy material around where the cancer is. This is cutting edge because it delivers it exactly to just the cancer cells. Okay, and they have examples of people in here that one man had pancreatic cancer, which is usually a death sentence.
Deadly, yeah.
It had already spread to his liver, which is also a death sentence.
Alex Trebek had, right?
I think so. I'm not sure what he had. It might have been. But he already had it in his liver. He went into remission. He came back again. Okay. He started on this, and they did it as, what they call it? Like a last hope thing for him to test it. And 15 years later, he's still alive. Wow. And he's in remission from the
15 years later, wow.
Well, progressively, but it's 15 years since then. He's lived that long. Problem with this product, besides its cost, it expires within days. Okay, so to do it, you start with the minerals. They enrich those minerals and they turn it into an isotope. That isotope is then exposed to radiation. So now this is a radiated element, right? Mineral. Okay, then they have to put it into a capsule. That capsule has to be encased in something because it emits radiation, something about the size of a credit card. All this, at that point, you're at like 4 days worth. Okay. So it only has a 6.5 day life. Once you reach that 6th, 7th day, it's not effective anymore. So to deliver this to people in that timely a manner is very hard to do. Especially if you only make it in Italy, New Jersey, and I think Spain is the 3rd place. So if it's got to get to Japan, it's got to get there in 7 days from the time they produce it to the time they get it and ship it. Okay.
But Mom, why can't they just help make a new platform in the countries that need it?
Because it's expensive to do.
Yeah, right.
So one pill.
And they don't want to, if they have the patents for it, they probably don't want to open the
Novartis is looking at this as a multi-billion-dollar industry because it does work so well, and it doesn't affect the other tissues, so people don't get sick from the. Some people get killed more from the treatment than from the cancer itself.
Radiation and chemo is very hard on the body. Very
hard, and the radiation especially can last a long time. So just as a understanding, they have 2 products. One's called Pluvicto, and the other one is Lutathera. The Pluvicto costs $42,500 for one pill.
Say that again.
$42,500 for one pill. The other one is capsule. The other one is $53,200. Okay.
I want to see the breakdown of.
And the average person needs 4 to 6 doses of it.
So that's what I mean though. What do you think the breakdown is of that? Do you really think that's worth that much money?
It's not.
Right.
And
does it
isn't.
Does it make? Well, I always get skeptical with these cancer drugs. Do you really think it takes, they're probably making it for what, $100 maybe?
No, but you have to understand something. Right. Years of research goes into it. Right. And you have to pay doctors for years to do this. And their staff. But the actual physical, and the facility. Then to get the materials.
But you think that this is the only thing that they have if it's a multi-billion-dollar medical company? If this was the only thing, then I get it.
Novartis has other things, but that's not how they...
I don't think they're struggling on money, is what I'm trying to say.
No, but there's nothing wrong with a corporation making money. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with it. When it comes to medical stuff, in my opinion, the whole pharmaceutical industry is quote unquote screwed up in how they have to do things. And the federal government doesn't help because they put a lot of regulations in there that were completely blown away with this COVID stuff, but that's another story. All these regulations are in there where it takes years and years to bring these things to fruition. And these companies want to make money because by law, the patent expires after a certain amount of time, and then everybody can make it cheaper, right? So a pharmaceutical company puts a lot of money. Like, I can see it from both sides. That's a ridiculous amount of money, $42,500. The average person can't afford that. So they're dead, right?
Yeah.
That's when medicine becomes elitist. But that's when you also have to bring in medical companies that will underwrite the costs of some of these. For a place like Canada with socialized medicine, they may not offer this because they don't want to offer it to everybody. It's too expensive. If the cost comes down, then they can offer it to everybody and they'll underwrite it. But right now, because Novartis is trying to capitalize on the product, for all the money they put into developing it, that's the side people don't understand. When you bring new products to the table, it costs these corporations a ton of money to meet all the regulations, all the testing requirements, and everything involved to issue the particular drug. And there's failures too, right? Sometimes it doesn't work. You got to scrap it. You got to start all over. Well, you got to get reimbursed for that. There's shareholders like you and me who own stock. We want to make some money. They got to generate some income to make that money. So the whole thing needs to be reworked only because it's medical care, and you got to find a way to make it, more reasonable than that amount of money.
Yeah.
But if you're desperate and you're dying, 42,000,
hopefully insurance covers a good part of it.
Or wouldn't you, give up your house to stay alive? Some people might refinance their house if they had to do it. But anyhow, it's what's fascinating is that this is out there, right? And hopefully, they'll work it and make it so that it's deliverable to more people, or other companies can start going in and tweaking it once the patent is done and say, can we extend the life? Is there a way we can get it? Or to your point, have places all over that can distribute it in real time. But I just think it's not cost effective to do that. That's the problem. These doctors were saying, like the one doctor at the beginning of the story, there was a volcano that erupted and he couldn't get the medication in time because the flights were messed up.
Right.
And they have to scrap it. That's a lot of money to scrap, right?
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, cancer sucks. But you know what? We all have belly fat, which is why.
Okay, there you go.
What is Ozempic? So we've been talking about this a lot recently. So you guys might have seen this on TikTok. You guys might have seen more on it. Let's do this is bro science between Mom and I. We'll explain to you what this stuff is. But Mom, do you want to give you had a pretty good
It's
definition.
a diabetic enhancer, I believe. It helps them uptake their glucose, their insulin. But apparently, if a healthy person takes it, they lose a lot of weight.
So what it does is, Ozempic is if you have diabetes, you probably know what this is. It's an insulin regulator. So the body, for those of you that don't know, we're going to get into like the sciences real fast. So with insulin, if you don't have diabetes, your body naturally is able to regulate insulin levels and glucose levels. So when you're trying to lose weight, a lot of people do intermittent fasting, because as long as you keep your glucose and insulin levels down, you actually lose weight pretty easily, like in the sense of it regulates itself a lot better. The second you start putting food in your mouth, your insulin rises, and that's how your blood sugar rises, and that makes it a lot easier to digest food. That's basically how your digestion works. What Ozempic does for people who are diabetic and can't control their insulin is, let's say they start eating and all of a sudden their insulin starts spiking really high. You can take Ozempic and it has something in it. It's called GLP-1.
It lowers the blood sugar in adults with type 2 diabetes.
Lowers it.
Yeah, so it brings the blood sugar in line with the insulin, I guess.
Yeah, right. That's what Ozempic does.
Yeah, it works on the blood sugar.
So when you're eating, your blood sugar goes up. The Ozempic causes it to go down. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So with Ozempic, we just found out that a lot of these celebrities have been taking it, and even though they don't have diabetes, basically what they're doing is they're eating, their insulin goes up, right? Their blood sugar goes up, hit yourself with the needle, causes it to go down, and that way you can regulate your weight. It's actually pretty interesting, but here's the problem. And this is the warning that I give to everyone who's thinking of doing this, which, again, if you know what you're doing, I mean, go for it. If you know how your hormones work, that's more obviously you youngsters out there you guys don't really know how to regulate hormones yet. But
but the federal government will do it for you if you really want.
But like it's kind of the same idea with TRT. There's certain amounts that you could take if you go over your hormone levels when you're out of normal range. Could cause some real issues like heart problems, liver problems, stuff like that.
Pancreas, kidneys.
Yeah. So with Ozempic, if you know what you're doing and you know your insulin levels, it's fine. Like Dave, our friend Dave, if I gave that to him, he'd know what to do with it. Most people don't know how to regulate that. So what ends up happening is people see these celebrities that do it, even though these celebrities have probably 10 doctors on standby who is constantly regulating and checking their blood sugar levels. You can't just go out and go, let me get Ozempic, which I think is an over-the-counter drug. I don't know how you get it.
No, I don't think it is.
I think you can just buy it.
No, I think it's prescription. No, I think it's prescription. But any doctor will give it to you if you pay him enough, probably, for if it's diet stuff.
Okay, well, either way, it doesn't seem that hard to get, right? It's probably easier to get that than TRT.
I don't see what it is. Yeah, it's a 1 weekly prescription.
Oh, okay.
With diet and exercise lowers your blood sugar in adults with type 2 diabetes. But
so
it's a cheat. It's another cheat.
It's a
okay?
cheat, yeah.
It's like in the 90s, it was the supermodels were taking speed because it got them to lower their weight. They didn't eat. Then it became the
kale.
The mental pills, the Adderalls, those type things. So the healthy ones started taking that because their body would be racing and they would lose weight. So it was like another cheat, how to lose weight. So you could sit there and eat cheeseburgers in front of everybody and say, oh, I don't put on weight, I'm so skinny. And meanwhile, they're taking all sorts of shots and drugs and, yeah, exactly, bitches. They were taking all sorts of stuff that, turns out they weren't doing it naturally and they weren't born that way.
Yeah, honestly, Ozempic's, it's just weird because with like cocaine and meth, whatever they're taking, the body knows how to level that off.
Yeah.
In the sense of you're going to have a come down at some point.
Right.
Whereas with insulin levels,
you can really mess yourself up.
I take cocaine before I do insulin.
Hey.
Well, think about it.
on.
It's probably safer to do. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you? You don't want to mess with hormones.
People, stop eating.
Starve yourself.
Okay.
No, I mean, to your point.
Get off your asses and walk
ways of doing
around.
it.
Exercise. Stop it. I mean, this is getting ridiculous when you look at.
When you're taking drugs that aren't made for you to lose weight, yeah, you're right.
Okay, it's just unbelievable to me.
Would you say lipo is in the same category, or would you say lipo is a little different? Liposuction is literally the suctioning out of fat.
I don't think it's natural. No, I don't think I don't think it is an answer to. You're not solving anything. You're cheating. Now, I'm not saying, to each his own.
Well,
if you want to do it, fine.
Well, hold on.
But you're taking the fat out because you can't lose that
yourself.
weight.
I think I think a lot of people would have the mentality, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but if you're 300 pounds and you're doing this, probably won't change your lifestyle at all. But if you're like kind of heavy set and you lose the weight using
if you're 300 pounds, odds are you already have diabetes.
Right.
No, I'm not
Yeah,
joking.
no, that's
I mean,
true.
that's really true. So you probably should be on Ozempic or the Wegovy thing, whatever it's called. It would not surprise me. I'm not saying assume that you should do it if you're overweight, but normally that's the next step. When you're overweight, you get diabetes.
I wonder if doctors are going to start, like let's say I don't have diabetes. And we know how corrupt our medical companies are now. If I didn't have diabetes and I said I want to lose weight, I wonder how fast they're going to say, hey, well, we have this new thing, Ozempic, that we can give you a prescription for. Like, at what point is it not a diabetic medicine anymore? It's just a weight loss medicine. Because there's going to be a lot more people wanting to lose weight than diabetics.
Gee, are you telling me that doctors prescribe things that they know aren't working? That they know
Mom,
can
I've never
harm
heard
us?
of that before.
Yeah.
What?
That they don't know what's in it and they're prescribing it to people. Gee,
COVID
that's
vaccine.
amazing.
Oh,
come
God.
on, easy there.
Oh,
you have no proof.
My
It's
throat.
fake misinformation.
Well, now from what
No,
we're saying
I mean,
with the Twitter hearings.
This is how they make money.
Yeah.
They prescribe stuff. Did we just say it recently? Doctors don't make money by consulting. Mm-hmm. They make more money by doing surgeries or prescribing things. Yep. Some doctor came on and he was saying that. It's absolutely true. And now we are in overdrive. We're prescribing things to save us from other stuff that was prescribed.
Well, our opioid pandemic is nuts. Just from doctors giving out opioids to people.
Yeah.
I mean, we're literally in an opioid crisis.
Yes. And part of the problem is when they can't get the opioids anymore, right?
Right.
for back pain or whatever because it's been overprescribed, and the doctor for some reason decides, no, I can't prescribe it anymore. So they go to another doctor, and eventually they got to go to heroin on the street because that's all they can get for their opioid addiction. And now you turn an average person who had a back pain into a homeless person who's a drug addict.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to think about, honestly.
Yes, it's
to your
very
point,
depressing.
It is weird that we've gotten to this level.
Hence why Uncle Ray doesn't like to talk to me on the phone anymore.
But think about, like, how do I put this? I was going to say it is easier just to get on Ozempic than the actual workout aspect if you can't work out every day. But then again, you're not putting in the work, so you're probably just going to still get fat anyway.
Well, the interesting thing is so many people who were overweight during the pandemic, that was considered a comorbidity, okay?
Right.
And these people were so scared many of them were so scared that they were going to die from COVID because they had a comorbidity. 2 years later, they were still worried about it, and they were still overweight. Mm. So maybe you can't lose 100 pounds overnight. I get it. It's very hard to do.
Unless you have Ozempic.
But if you're desperate enough and it's 2 years later and you're still worried because you're overweight, that says something about just how worried are you when there is a fix. And that fix is start today, eat less and try and lose some weight, right. Exercise more. No, I'd rather sit on my sofa, eat chips and say, oh my God, I'm worried I'm going to die because I'm obese. Because that was a comorbidity.
Yeah.
People who were at that size. And people that I know, I would say, if you're really that concerned, try and lose some weight.
Yeah.
Maybe not 100 pounds, but try for 20, try for 30. Because, yes, it is a comorbidity. It is something that's going to... And genuinely, they're like, yeah, I get it. Well, 2 years later, they didn't. So you know what? Don't cry to me when another pandemic comes along and you're still overweight. It's not like you had to lose it overnight.
Right.
We had years of it. And still today, you see people who are overweight. They'd rather go get a shot that probably won't work for them anyhow than actually do what's overall good for them. That's the problem. This is for overall health. It's good to lose weight. But doctors don't even want to say that anymore.
No.
They'd rather prescribe pills, drugs, and whatever. Or they're getting a lot of flack for saying it. How dare you tell me I'm heavy? There's nothing wrong with me. No, you're heavy. And there's lots of things wrong with that. But having said that, I don't agree with, I don't know, like a lot of my peers are doing the Botox now to get rid of the wrinkles and whatnot. Yeah. I mean, yes, they look good. Yes, it's an industry. Is it harmful to anybody? No, it's not like you're taking a drug away from somebody who needs it, but it's a cheat. It's another cheat.
Yeah. From the perspective of the health and fitness, if you are going to do it, Ozempic, make sure you're getting your blood levels checked. Like, that's the biggest problem that's going to come from this. People are going to take it and not know, they just know it as, it's going to make me lose weight. They're not looking at their blood levels. So always, with anything you take that's going to be affecting hormones, you should always have someone check your blood work.
Yeah,
whether it be TRT, steroids, SARMs. Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah, it's a diabetic drug. You don't need it.
We were having problems with the weight loss with the Adderall that people who actually have
ADD,
they can't get their meds. They were running out of meds.
Good call. So, side story, someone we know, I'll tell you, well, Mrs. Fred was telling me about her kid. I'll bleep it out. But was telling me her son, Matt, the youngest, he's been getting his ADD medicine stolen, right? Because kids need it, right? Kids are just taking it from him, right? He's not careful with this stuff. That's a different story. But she was saying that it is impossible to get a new thing of Adderall medicine because in New Jersey they're so strict about it now that because of the weight loss situation, stuff like that.
Well, weight loss in kids used to steal it because it was speed for your brain, so they were taking it during exam time because they could stay up for 8 hours, take a test, their brain was sharp, and then they'd come off it at the end of it.
But kids were. I think in New Jersey.
Fix your hair. You look like nerd
hair. When I was in school, they would come, like ADD medicine came in like 50, 60 pills. She said she can only get 15 at a time for Matt.
Yeah, no, it's
how crazy is that?
Stuff.
Yeah, that's a big change in the 5 years since I've been in college.
Some of them are depends on what you take. right?
He took Vyvanse.
Okay. So that's a what do you call that?
Long
A
lasting?
triple? No, it's a triple prescription. So one sheet goes to you for the pharmacy, one the doctor keeps, and one goes to the government or to the medical
Really?
or something. Yes. Certain things it's like a controlled substance type thing. That's why they were very strict about they need to see you a certain amount of time, blah, blah, blah. Because that was a different type of pill. Adderall used to be that way, but now I think Adderall is strictly they're having trouble getting it for people, which, now you go back to, I don't know if Ozempic's a problem, but it's needed for type 2 diabetes. It's not meant for weight loss, right? And we worry so much about the insulin. Remember when that went up in cost? Okay?
Yeah.
So now I've got Ozempic and people are using it as weight loss, but yet people can't get basic insulin because it's too freaking expensive, right? They jacked up the price. It's just mind-boggling the stupidity here of what we're doing. And it goes back to, just lose the weight, okay? Do it the good old-fashioned, stop eating, get up, exercise, or stop eating processed food. That's why we have an explosion of overweight people around the world.
Well, then you make the argument, the non-processed food is way too expensive.
But you don't need as much of it.
True.
People think you have to eat. Somebody had a great line about...
We're in a recession, goddammit,
somebody was talking about, they were online for something and it was 2 hours and they came out and they brought people water and snacks. And the comment was, it was an older person, they said, oh my God, you remember the time in America where you could stand online for 2 hours and not have to eat?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the mentality in our country now. If somebody has to wait, give them some food. Give them something to eat, even if it's just water, or give them some food. Or kids in church, they come with the snacks. They come with this, that. It's 40 minutes tops, okay? I mean, a little kid, I get it to keep them entertained. But I see people drinking waters and eating in the middle of church.
Really?
Oh, yeah, we've had that. Remember the water girls at Christmas that time? They came with water bottles. You remember that? The Creasters? Anyhow, they were dressed in the nines, and they each had a water bottle. They're sipping water in the middle of church. I don't even know if you're supposed to do that at all, let alone... But anyhow, but this is the mentality. Right? Intermittent fasting, we were just talking about that, right? Intermittent fasting is basically you stop eating at a certain time, you don't eat again for a certain amount of time.
Your eating window, yeah.
That was America and Europe for thousands of years. People didn't snack at night. You had dinner. If you were lucky, you had dessert, which, people
if you
were poor.
Lucky.
Well, if you're a peasant. But people didn't eat in front of a TV at midnight. They didn't have a soda at 10 o'clock at night, right? You just stopped eating.
Imagine that. Soda at 10 o'clock at night?
Well, that's what people do. Like, they're out at a bar, right? They go out to a bar.
Can I tell you who lesser people are? People who drink soda at breakfast. Have you ever seen someone do that?
Some people take that as
that
like
is
caffeine.
Disgusting. I think Uncle Jerry does that.
Yeah, well, they would think we're weird with
disgusting.
coffee. The equivalent would be coffee for breakfast. But, I mean, it's not complicated. It's
Troy,
just we've been so ingrained to think we got to eat all the time.
I remember when we were in Cape May, our cousin Troy, dad walks downstairs and he sees Troy with, he's got, I think like Cookie Crisp, and then instead of milk he had Pepsi.
Oh man.
And Dad was like, what the fuck are you doing?
There was no milk?
No milk. So instead of milk, it's Pepsi.
No, but I mean, there was no milk in the house? Please tell me he was doing it because there was
no
milk in the house.
I don't know. I mean, he had to be, what, a teenager, maybe?
Oh, God.
I don't remember how old he was, but I remember that. It's like Cookie Crisp and Pepsi. I was like, Joey, what the fuck? Remember, and he's
Is he supposed to be the help one?
And he's a D1 football player, so see how that turned out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I
gotta send that clip to Aunt Robin.
I think it really, so much of this stuff I know it sounds like, oh, well, you say it's so easy to do. No, I know it's not easy to do, to lose weight. I mean, we're all victims of it. But really, that's what it comes down to. If you're going to lose weight, you stop eating and you work out more. You know it. I know it. These shortcuts, well, it's great, but is it worth screwing up your blood sugar to lose 10 pounds quicker than if you took time and lost it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, to your point, if your body can naturally regulate insulin, you should not be taking Ozempic.
Right.
What I'm saying is, it's a free country. I can't tell you what to do. So if you are going to do it, you have to have someone check your blood levels. Otherwise, you're going to deal with a lot of problems.
And I don't know how many of these people actually keep it off. Once they go off the Ozempic.
So that's the other thing that I couldn't find out. I don't know. There's a way now that there's a surgery nowadays. I don't know what it is. I have to look into it more. Dave might know. There's a surgery that you can do that actually gets the body to stop storing fat. It actually just goes through your bloodstream.
Sign me up.
I know. Yeah, that's what I was like. Why is no one doing that? But then I realized, I mean, it's an expensive surgery.
Yeah, it's.
But to never put on fat again, ever, 6-pack year round. Well, the body has to have
I've been told, I don't know if it's still true, but when you do lipo, they're sucking out the fat. That's great. Problem is, when you get fat again, if you get fat, because some people just naturally put on weight, now it's got to go somewhere. And the fat's not there where it's supposed to go. So it finds other fat.
Yes.
And that's how you wind up getting misshapen as you get older. Now you got fat in your legs, you got fat in your arms, and that's hard to get rid of versus fat in the stomach.
Well, you just do another lipo, Mom.
Well, I don't think they can keep doing as many lipos as you want. And meanwhile, you do need some fat on you. You can't get rid of all your fat.
You can't get, there's certain fat deposits that you need.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where the actual necessary fat deposits are. Like, my guess is it's probably in your arms and stuff.
I'll take him out soon.
Oh, okay. I think it's not necessarily... it's probably in your arms, if I were to guess, the fat deposits that you do need to keep. The ones in your stomach, I don't really think you need to keep. Get rid of those.
Well, as you get older,
and your legs.
You get fat around your organs. That's the dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they can even take that out or if that remains and they take the outer layer. But you're not going to be skinny when you get older. It just doesn't, unless you're genetically prone that way.
I want you guys to know that we're talking about this while I literally have a pint of Ben and Jerry's
I just said carrot cake before, right?
waiting for me. Yeah.
So yeah,
we have UFC fights, I'm always eating my fish food.
But we know. I mean, that's the reality. We're a nation that's very blessed. We have food on our shelves. We can eat all the time. Even if you don't have money, you get government subsidies to go get food and go do what you have to do. I was just telling Dad, they had pictures of drug addicts who bought crates and crates of waters, the packaged waters, bottles of water. They empty the water out, they trade in the bottles, and they buy drugs with it. So they use their food stamps.
Is nuts.
Yeah, they use the food stamps to buy the water. They get the money for the bottles, and they use that money to go buy the drugs.
Can you imagine if they put that level of hustle into something like you?
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. Same thing. We're spending so much time
looking for things. It's not a homeless issue. It's a drug issue.
No, the drug addicts.
Yeah, it's
and
a
they're
drug
not stupid
issue.
people. I mean, takes a certain
Unfortunately,
level
a lot of them are veterans, but...
And that's how they come up with the money to buy cheap drugs. But that's what I'm saying. The energy wasted on negative things, like Ozempic versus just... How many... go on a diet.
How many bottles that is, though?
Oh, they had like a whole shopping cart full of them.
I still don't know.
$2.40 they got for one. It's crazy.
Jeez. But how much you get? Okay, I'm doing some
drugs are cheap.
I'm doing some drug math.
Well, the drugs are cheap.
Yeah, I don't know how cheap we talking.
Well, somebody had a great line that California, they banned plastic straws, but yet they have no problem giving out syringes to the drug addicts who just dump them all over the city. This is the nonsense that we're going through versus fixing the problem.
Good job, Newsom.
Getting these people help. Well, it's all over the country, but that's a perfect example of the most hypocritical state of all, or the blatantly hypocritical. They don't even hide it. But it's the same thing with this diet stuff. It's not easy. But shame on these doctors who are prescribing this. And the quote-unquote celebrities who, most of them are denying it, that they don't take the stuff. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But, you see these drastic weight losses.
I would make the argument that celebrities who are paying trainers anyway don't even need Ozempic. They probably have trainers and nutritionists like crazy. They're going to be in good shape no matter what.
Right, but some of them, as they get older especially, it's harder to lose the
Jolie's
weight.
Definitely on it.
I don't know. Well, then you get into the whole smoking thing. You still have the smokers out there that are always thin.
Except for Ben Affleck. It's not working for him.
It's not working for him. He looks like he needs a drink all the time.
We call him Beer Gut Batman.
Right.
No, we like
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck. But the last article I have, the activist crusade against the new Harry Potter video game. We'll go through this quick. Let me tell you something. Shut up, activists.
You want me to take him out first, and then I'll...
This is already 10? Oh, you know what? We can end it there. I just wanted to quickly say,
No, you want to do the Hogwarts... if it was longer, I can take him out and come back. And
it's not. It's a short article. I just want to say. So I told you this morning there was a Wired article. So Wired is the company of this lady who her name. It was like her name was spelled Jane with like Jain, which is. I mean that's a red flag right there. and she's basically talking about how Hogwarts is like the worst game geared to 1 out of 10. So I just want to. I wish they said it in this article, but so far it has shattered every like fastest downloaded game of all time in the sense of numbers, in the sense of demographic of women and men. Like everyone, this thing's gonna win. I don't know if it's gonna win Game of the Year, but it's a fantastic game. I won't. Since
I heard you talking about it.
Since we're in a little bit of a rush with Bo and I have stuff, we have the fights starting. I won't go too far into it, but yeah, we've been playing it. I am loving it. It is fun. It's
but
a
you
little
have to clarify. Well, I guess your followers would know it, but they're all mad because it's a J.K. Rowling book, right?
The big problem behind it, or the controversy behind it, was the author of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, years ago, made some anti-trans stuff, like there's only boys and girls.
Well,
which
no,
is so
she
crazy.
made pro-women, which they equate as anti-trans. She wasn't against the trans. Her point was you can't not say there's nothing like there are no women and there are no men. That was her point. You can't.
Either way,
yeah.
That's not the reason to cancel a game, right?
No,
so
right.
A lot of the Twitch streamers were having problems with people like bashing them in chat, like, you're pro-trans. I'm just here to play the video game.
Right.
I don't care if I don't know the backlash. I just want to play Harry Potter.
Not everything's political.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
Everybody's trying to make a statement.
Yeah. Maybe because I just like Harry Potter and I want to play the game.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a fantastic game. It was worth every penny so far. I'm 20 hours in probably, and I've barely scratched the surface of that game. Mom, the map, it's huge, and it's 1-to-1 scale of everything.
Oh God.
It's so cool. Here's what I'll say. Like, if you're a big Harry Potter fan, it's the best thing we have, by far.
Okay.
Like, do you remember growing up, the Harry Potter games?
Yeah, the young kids were all into it, but.
Well, no. Remember the little PC game that I had? That I did with Grandma that one time?
Yeah,
that was shit.
Yeah.
That was shit.
Yeah, but you're a little kid. Yeah, you're a little kid. That's all they
We're
had
gonna be
at the
playing
time.
through those after this.
You weren't even into Harry Potter. You were into it a little later on.
I wasn't at all, but now I'm like...
None of my sons were into Harry Potter.
Until I got to college.
Those books are too big.
It's like more than 10 pages, Mom. I don't want to read it.
I don't want to look like one of those kids.
It was either that or Twilight, so we just took the middle ground and read none of them.
I don't understand, guys. Everybody thinks these books are so popular. It's too big.
When I watched them in college, and they were, I have to say, I was definitely missing out. To this day, those movies hold up. So strongly recommend all 6 or 7
I'm going to buy you the whole book series for your birthday.
Why the hell would you do that? You know I'm not going to read those.
Of course. It's too big.
Why, Mom? I already have the game and the movies.
I can't carry it in my backpack. Kids are so annoying. I don't want to take. I'm gonna look like Jade.
Oh, man. That's a family inside joke.
I'm not reading it.
All right. Well,
gosh.
that's all I want to say. Don't listen to the activists. Get the game. Support J.K. Rowling.
She needs the money.
Yeah. The one.
She's laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah. She's like, oh man, let me check my bank.
Right,
We're good.
Right. Keep those comments coming, transgenders.
Yeah. She does not care. But yeah, get it. It's actually a phenomenal game. Don't let the others make fun of you for it or whatever. Yeah, just go get it. But on that, we'll end it there just because it's already pretty late. We're a little behind. So Bo's got to go out. Yep. Only thing I have to promote, so by the time this comes out on Monday, Mafia will be out tomorrow. So this is Monday. Mafia comes out Sunday. Wednesday is going to be the Twitch Clips video for January. And then Friday's going to be a special video. So other than that, social media down below, promo codes down below, other stream links down below, and I'll see you tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard. So later, guys.